Hey, Dr. McLean. I want to share with you a tip that I learned during running and training for a marathon that I actually use on my daily projects, and I think will be very helpful to you. And so one of the things I learned is that when you go out for especially longer runs, you're running 3 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, and almost invariably on the longer runs, 7 miles, 10 miles, there's almost always, at least I experienced this, I think a lot of runners experience this, there's usually a time where you would kind of hit what they call the wall, hit the proverbial wall. Maybe you're at mile 6 and you've got to run 10 miles and all of a sudden you just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm just dying. I don't think I can complete this run. And so the trick that I learned was that you would try to just focus on the next object. So if you're running down the road, you'd pick the next corner. And at the time I was training in Minneapolis, so it was easy just to pick a corner of a block. But it could be any landmark. So I'm going to pick this landmark that's a block away, 100 yards away, and I'm only going to commit to running to that corner. I'm not committing to running the whole 10 miles. I'm just going to commit to getting to that next corner. And when I get to that next corner, then you would decide as you're approaching the corner, you would reassess and go, okay, I picked the next landmark. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to run to that next corner or whatever. Again, the next landmark, the next stop sign, whatever it is. And then you reassess. And what happened to me, at least 100% of the time when I did this, is I do that maybe 2 or 3 times, and then I would kind of get over that little rut and I would get moving again. And so the way that I use this on my daily life is, especially if you've got bigger projects or you've got those things that you know that you hate doing, you don't want to do, you do all this other work first, you try to do this thing last because you don't want to do it, but it's something that's got to get done. On those projects, what I'll do again is I'll commit to that very small parameter. Maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 15 minutes. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to commit to doing just 15 minutes. And at the end of 15 minutes, if I want to do more, great, but at least I've got that 15 minutes going, and then maybe the next day I can do 15 more minutes. And usually what I find, especially if it's a project that you don't want to do, is once you get into it, like, well, I might as well just get this complete, depending on what the project is. The other day I had to do this, some paperwork I needed to do. Like, all right, I'm just going to do it for 10 minutes, get the ball rolling here. And I got into it, and the next thing you know, I was done with that project. So using these smaller parameters to break it down can give you great momentum, and we just got to get the ball rolling. So you can use this for long-term things like, again, like fitness. Like, I just can't see myself going to the gym for 45 minutes a day, 5 days a week and working out. And maybe that's what you need to do, but start with 5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes at home and doing some squats or walking to the end of your block and back. Just commit to that little bit and start there. Maybe do that for a month. And again, you just got to get this momentum going. Because most of these projects, once we start doing them, we get that energy going and we want to keep doing it. And the analogy I heard that I thought was a good one too is if you think of those big, huge steam locomotives, and when they leave the station, they take a lot of energy to get going. They're just barely moving, they're just putting all this energy out. But once they get up to speed, it takes a lot to actually stop them. And it takes very little energy to keep them going. So you got all this momentum and weight behind them. That's kind of how our brain works when we start to get into these projects. So I recommend you that break them into these smaller chunks and just get that momentum going. Don't worry about completing the project. Don't worry about doing it right. Just get going. And again, you can apply this to health. You can apply it to any area of life that you're trying to achieve.